Hello crafters, this is Yana Smakula for SimonsSTM.com. Welcome back for another Yippee For Yana episode. In this video, I'm using multiple STM sets to create mass-producible Christmas cards. All supplies I'm using for these projects are linked and listed in the video description below for your convenience. I love to combine various STM sets to give the images a new, different look. Today, I'm working with 4 different STM sets from Simons Says Stamp. Printmaking Pines. I'm a big fan of the Printmaking STM set series. You might remember my previous videos featuring other printmaking sets. Next, I have the Holiday Horizon set. This is a new to me set, and I cannot wait to use it. I love the little silhouettes in here. Next, I have the Holiday Sparkle Greetings. This one is one of my all-time favorites for Christmas. I love the big scripty words included in this set, and that joy is absolutely fantastic. And last but not least is the Simple Holiday Greetings set. It is one that is classy and timeless, with many Christmas and holiday greetings that can be used as main sentiments or as sub-sentiments on your holiday cards. The star of the show for today's cards is, of course, the Printmaking Pines set. If you want to replicate these cards, you'll need to use the Printmaking Pines set. And if you don't have the other sets, you can try and substitute them using some other stamps that you might have in your stash. The Printmaking Pines is the 4-step set. So there are 4 steps to stamping the beautiful pine trees, and you will need 4 colors of ink respectively. Now, you don't have to mass produce this card design if you don't want to. Of course, you can just make one card, but we will be doing quite a lot of stamping. So it makes sense to mass produce this design, as the stamping itself doesn't take a lot of time. It is the change of the layers and the positioning of the layers that takes the longest. I have my Misty stamping tool. I'm using the larger Misty and not the small one, as the small one will not accommodate the additional stamping that we'll need to do to fill in the entire background. I also have white cardstock panels cut to 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. So basically a background for an A2 card. I'm going to start by stamping the first layer, or the layer with the top part of this middle tree. Now, the reason for that is I want the top part of that middle tree to be stamped using the lightest ink color, and then the middle part stamped using the medium ink color, and then the bottom part stamped using the darkest ink color. So it was easiest for me to start with this top layer, so that's what I did. I placed the stamp in the center of my panel. The idea for these cards is to stamp a background that covers the entire A2 panel. So we'll stamp this design in the center. Next, we'll repeat it to the left and then to the right, and then in the top section and then in the bottom section of the panel. So lots and lots of stamping. Alternatively, you don't have to start in the center. You can move this design off to the side so that you don't have to stamp it as many times. I will stamp this 5 times, but if you start, say, in the bottom left corner, you would have to stamp it only 4 times. So just a little tip for you. I'm going to use the Simons Says Stamp Positively Saturated Inks. They come in nice groupings of 3 colors. So I have my light, my medium, and my dark color, and this is simply perfect for my plan. For this panel, I'm stamping the trees in green using the Celery, Limelicious, and Perfection inks, and starting with the Celery as my lightest color. Because I have this stamp set already positioned on the door of my Misty, I might as well stamp additional panels. So this is where the mass production comes into play. You can mass produce using the same ink color, or you can follow my lead and play a little bit with all the other ink colors that you have in your stash. I decided I needed to stamp the trees in blue, purple, and even pink. With the first layer stamped onto all of my panels, I'm going to stamp the second layer. I am aligning it over my previous stamped layer, and these printmaking stamps are very easy to align. They are not hard to use at all, And I'm ready to stamp the second layer onto this panel and onto the other panels that I have stamped. For the blue panel, for example, I'm using Marine, Cadet, and Royal ink colors. When I started stamping the panels in other ink colors, I wasn't entirely sure if, the other ink colors would work. After all, blue Christmas trees are not that common. But I wanted to experiment and I wanted to play, and I'm glad that I did because I had a lot of fun during the process and the cards ended up looking fabulous as well. Now, I did make sure to clean my layers or to clean my stamp between the various ink colors to make sure that I didn't have any ink contamination. Next, I aligned my third layer. Again, this is very easy to do, and I stamped it using my darkest green. And then I also used the corresponding darkest ink colors for the other panels that I'm working on. The fourth and final layer is the tree trunks. You stamp all of them at once using brown ink. I have the cappuccino ink for this. Now that I have my main cluster stamped, I have the space around it that I need to fill in. And I do that by repeat stamping the same layer. This is what's going to take the longest, but to me, this is the fun of it. I get to use a smaller stamp set to build a background for my cards. And I repeat the process, starting with the lightest ink and the first layer, and I stamp it again onto all of my panels. I then add the second layer onto all of my panels, and then the third layer onto all of my panels, as well as the fourth one as well. Using a MISTI is a must-have for this technique, as you can just align the image once and replicate the position as many times as you need. There's no guesswork, you just stamp, 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 and enjoy the process. Once I stamped my forest, and that's what these trees look like to me, once the background was filled, they look like a big forest, or maybe a park. Yeah. Because of how linear the trees are, they probably look a little more like a park than a forest. So once I had stamped my park, I thought about ways I could add additional details. The trees look fantastic on their own, but this doesn't mean we cannot add other images on top. You can look through your stash and see if you have anything that would work size-wise next to these trees. You can stamp tree silhouettes. You can do people silhouettes. You can add in tiny embellishments to the trees. You can stamp tiny birds. You can stamp little houses, etc. See what you have and try to envision if that would work in conjunction with the trees. So here are the 4 panels that I made. I love the color variations here and all of the different colored trees, even the pink and the purple. My next step for these cards was to stamp the sentiment. I picked the large joy as I wanted something big to spawn across the entire background and, in a way, connect all of the trees. I stamped it using VersaFine Onyx Black ink. This is my favorite black ink for stamping sentiments and solid images. It is very dark, deep black, and I personally think it is the best black ink out there. Look through your stash and see if you have any large Christmas sentiments like this one. If you are not sure if it would work on your background, you can first stamp it onto clear acetate and place that acetate over the background to see if you like it or not. Next, I use the tiny silhouette images from the Holiday Horizons set from Simon Says Stamp. The silhouettes are fun and playful, and they add interest and character to the stamped tree background. I positioned several silhouettes, at least one in each row of the trees, and stamped the silhouettes in the same VersaFine Onyx Black ink. The sentiment I had stamped previously, the large scripty joy, the sentiment was fun, but it wasn't enough for what I had in mind for these projects. So I heat embossed a sub-sentiment in white embossing powder onto various colors of cardstock depending on the color that I used for my trees. So for example, I used red cardstock for the green tree background because red and green go really well for Christmas cards. Then I used gray cardstock, the Simon Says Stamp Fog, for the purple background, silver cardstock for blue trees, and then gold cardstock for the pink trees. And by the way, I have all of the supplies that I use for these cards linked in the description below. Next, I trimmed each background panel down slightly. I cut about 1/8 of an inch off from each side. This gave me a panel slightly smaller than my A2 card, giving me a nice border around the finished card. And I really like that look when I have a white border around my background. I wanted to add something else to my card design, and I decided to add snow. I used gold and silver pens for this, and I simply dotted gold or silver dots onto my white background anywhere between the trees. I didn't add any dots over the trees, just onto the white spaces between them. You can add the dots over the trees if you want to, but I feel like it might look a little bit too busy. Now, I did match the color of the dots to the color of the cardstock used for the sub-sentiment. Next, I cut a panel of white fun foam to 4 by 5¼ inches, and I used that to foam mount my background onto the card. I also used fun foam scraps to foam mount the sub-sentiments onto my card, overlapping the letter Y a little bit. I repeated that for all of my cards, and here's a look at all of the finished projects. I hope you feel inspired to create. If you make a card inspired by this video, we'd love it if you shared your project online and tagged us on social media. We always enjoy seeing what you make. Thanks so much for joining me today. Love you guys, and I'll see you next time.